Getting to the top of Google rankings can be like climbing a mountain. But imagine if you could get to the top. And you know what? A lot of businesses can get to the top and stay there quite easily. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can do that. I'm also going to show you why some business owners are just making it hard for themselves, and the reason why they're buried under all the other businesses is down to something that they're doing without realizing. So I'm going to show you a simple change you can make that will get your business to the top, and you could possibly do it again and again and again, depending on your type of business. So in this video, I'm going to show you what you need to do to get loads more traffic, 3 ways that you just need to be careful though, and how you can check to see whether or not it worked. But first you need to understand a simple concept of phishing, because when it comes to Google business categories, you need to think of these as really casting your net out where the fish are. So imagine there's a sea full of hungry fish. Well, they're like your hungry customers. And as you cast your net out, maybe you capture 100. So you need a sturdy net to capture those fish. But if one sturdy net brings in 100 fish or 100 potential customers, so why not throw out 2 nets or 3 nets, or in effect secondary nets? And suddenly you're catching not only more fish, but you're catching them from different schools of fish, and maybe even in different seas. And potentially this could double or even triple the potential interest in your business. And the best bit is some of these areas are so untapped that you can easily get to the top of them too. And so this is all about adding relevant categories and secondary categories, and categories that you may not have considered before. So by adding more relevant categories, you're expanding your reach, you're giving yourself more chances to reel in those high value, ready to buy customers. So how do we know this is actually true? Well, many have tried experiments. I mean, here's an example of one where they just added an Italian restaurant was the main category. They added then as a secondary category pizzas, a pizza restaurant they put on there. And as people then were searching for best pizza near me or pizza near me, then the Italian restaurant was coming up locally too. And because the Italian restaurant could serve pizzas and do them as takeaways too, then they had this influx of interest. So you can see here they were around about number 2, number 3, number 4 for quite some time. They then took that secondary category off. So they were just in an Italian restaurant, and what do you notice? It drops right down. And so then when they re-established it again, it goes back up. So how can you do this for your business? Well, most businesses have more than one ideal category, one primary category, because you set your primary category when you first establish your business in Google. But you'll find that often that doesn't alone describe your business. And the only thing is you can't add a bespoke category. Google provides the categories, so you have to go with what they provide. A little tip though, you can add your own services. If you want to micro define what you do, then services is the way to do that. But services don't bring in the big catch of fish that categories do. But the problem is also that Google won't give you any clue as to what type of categories are out there. So you can go into your categories and start typing in some of the words that you think might make a good primary category or a secondary category, and they may come up. But how can you really find the missing gems, those categories that are really getting the big fish? Well, let me show you how to do that. If I head on to, say, Google Maps, if I type in web design, I can see various businesses coming up locally, and that's fine. But you'll notice that Google Maps will only show the primary category or the relevant category to the search. So if I'm doing a search for web design, then just web design comes up as being a category. But it might be that one of these is using it as a secondary category. So they've bought a ticket and they're now in that prize draw for being shown as number 1 on Google Maps, even though that might not be their primary category. So this is why secondary categories are so important. But we don't know what those secondary categories are yet, until we use a special tool. So I use GMB everywhere. There's quite a few other tools that will do this too, but this one's particularly good because why I like it is it just shows you the primary category as a star, and then it shows you all the secondary categories too. So if I do exactly the same search again, you notice now what comes up. I get the primary categories, but I also get the secondary categories. And not all of them were web design. See one of them here, internet marketing service, marketing agency, marketing consultant, web designer, is just a secondary category, yet it was getting found in a primary result. And that's how you get the greater catch of fish. That's how you get more nets out at sea. But I mentioned there are 3 things you need to be careful with here, because the temptation is to just put every category that's close to your business and to just stick them in as secondary categories. And I've known some say, should I just fill in all 9 secondary categories? Because 9 is the limit. So with your primary one, that's 10. So you could potentially have 10 nets out at sea. Imagine the fish you could get with that. But that isn't the way to go about it. So there are 3 things you need to be cautious of. Number 1 is just make sure that you follow the guidelines about categories. And if I take you to Google's guidelines, it says there, use as few categories as possible to describe your overall core business from the provided list. So if you just think I'm going to add loads willy-nilly, not worry whether I can fulfill these categories, that isn't going to work very well because that's going against guidelines. If it gets reported, your business could be removed. So that's the first area of caution. The second one is if you do add loads and loads of categories, secondary categories, but you don't really fulfill what those categories are. So say you were an Italian restaurant and you didn't really do pizzas, you only did pasta, and someone then did a search for pizzas near me, they saw your restaurant, they go there, and you say, well, I don't really do pizzas, that's not going to go down very well. What's that going to do? First of all, you'll get bad reviews. Secondly, that will cause negative signals. That will then produce bad bounce rates on your website and on your listing, your profile. And ultimately, Google gets all those signals and it will start to pull you back down the rank. So having negative ranking signals because you don't fulfill the category itself isn't going to do you any good at all. So only add categories that you can fully fulfill. So in the case of as a web designer, if I can't do consultancy and I say that I do marketing consultancy as a category, then that could produce negative results going forward. And the third area is that categories, because they are such an impactful way of ranking, they are one of the big factors of your ranking. Google is also very precious when you make changes. So if you kept making changes in your categories, there'll be at some point something will flag to Google and they'll then say re-verify your business, re-prove that you have that category, re-prove that your address is there, that your business name is this. And once you start going down the category of trying to video verify to Google that you exist, you have to show all sorts of things, it can be quite difficult and it can be quite an expensive few months because it can take some time before you get that approval again. So changing categories can sometimes, there's an expression, let sleeping dogs lie. So don't always disturb it if it's not necessary. So now we've got those 3 kind of areas out of the way. If you still have some categories that you know you can fulfill and it's not an issue with those 3 things in mind, then add them. Because now the excitement bit is to see how it affects your ranking. But you won't know how it affects your ranking if you only go by looking at what Google provides. Because Google gives us insights, it gives us a performance, but it doesn't do it based on keywords. So there's no real way of knowing whether those secondary categories made a difference and how it affected your keywords. So for you to do that, you would need to have some type of extra tool, a third-party tool. One of the easiest and best value ones I use is LOCALO. So LOCALO will map, it will look at your keywords, it will tell you where you perform, it will tell you quite quickly whether it had an impact. So if you change the category today, in a few days' time, you may well see that impact it's had on your traffic. And that would be my recommendation, is use LOCALO, keep an eye on your SEO efforts and see what changes that makes as well. So give all this a try. And then put some comments down below in the comments of this video and let me know how you got on. But one of the other things that will get you to the top as well, along with categories, is reviews. So how do you get those 5-star reviews? And can you get 5-star reviews day after day, week after week? In fact, could you get 100 5-star reviews in a day? Well, I answer all those things in this video next, so I'll see you there.